allocated both wave and tidal stream to be included within the revenue support mechanism, and for BEIS to consider innovative power purchase agreements as an additional support option. Without this support, the sector will not be able to credibly move from R&D to pre-commercial and then finally commercial scale. It's important to note that the offshore wind sector has taken 20 years to reach cost parity with traditional forms of fossil fuel power generation. And it's my belief that the wave and tidal stream sector requires that long-term sustained support so that we can move along its path to commercialisation. Over the past 12 months, we've made continuous strides to deliver clear guidance to businesses and developers of marine energy projects across Wales. And I'm sure you're all aware that at the end of last year, we adopted our first national marine plan. That will provide the development framework for the next 20 years. It encompasses 11 sectors, and that includes renewable energy, ports, shipping, aquaculture, and subsea cabling, and they will all have a direct bearing on the marine energy sector. We also recognise that Wales needed to work much more closely with key stakeholders within the marine community to deliver a more streamlined response and to be able then to support the sector. So a consenting strategic advisory group has been established, and that brings together our key partners such as Natural Resources Wales, Marine Energy Wales, and the technology and developer community, and of course the environmental groups, all to work collaboratively together. And I was very pleased to attend a meeting earlier this week. That group will identify opportunities so that we can improve consenting for wave and tidal stream projects. Alongside this, NRW has created a dedicated offshore renewable energy team to provide the specialist support that's required to deliver complex technology projects. So by providing the clear policy framework and support mechanisms, we do hope to unlock both the economic and energy generation opportunity right across Wales. And this opportunity was outlined in detail within the Offshore Renewable Energy Catapults Supply Chain Study, which focused on floating wind opportunities within the Celtic Sea, and that was published at the beginning of this year. Over the past 12 months, there's been a number of strategic project announcements, including the Ramsey Sound Regeneration Project that was funded via the Interreg France Channel England programme. This is a €4.6 million tidal stream industry energiser project known as Tiger, and that will be delivered by Cambrian Offshore Energy and will regenerate the Ramsey Sound site, creating a tidal stream test facility, allowing turbines to plug into the grid and prove their technology in one of the UK's only grid-connected, accessible and dynamic tidal deployment sites. Earlier this month, both the Welsh and UK government announced that we've approved Swansea Bay City Deal's Pembroke Dock Marine £60 million project business case, and I know that was very much welcomed. The project will create a world-class centre for marine engineering and is expected to support more than 1,800 jobs over the next 15 years. Pembroke Dock Marine is the deal's only private sector-led project, and it's made up of 4 elements. The Marine Energy Test Area, which is led by Marine Energy Wales, that will enable technology developers to test their marine energy devices. They've already achieved consent for their phase 1 sites and are on the cusp of completing their second phase site consents with NRW shortly. Wave Hub Limited will undertake pre-consenting and design work to enable the delivery of the 90 square kilometre Pembrokeshire demonstration zone dedicated to both wave and floating wind technologies. The Offshore Renewable Energy Catapult has already opened the doors on its Marine Energy Engineering Centre of Excellence in Pembroke Dock and will deliver a wide range of innovation and technology support to the marine energy sector. And the 4th element of the project is the redevelopment of the Port of Pembroke to deliver infrastructure needed by the marine energy sector. So this investment into the sector will enhance the support that WEFO's already provided to many of our project developers across Wales, and that includes Minesto on Anglesey, and together with Marine Power Systems and Bombora Wave Power in South West Wales, and I know you'll be hearing later from them in this webinar. So I'm really grateful for the invitation to attend the launch today. Again, apologies for the slight delay in being able to join you, but I'm very much looking forward to the presentations and the discussions. Thank you.
Minister, thank you very, very much indeed. What we were planning to do next is for Jess who's the programme lead in the MEW team, to present the key findings from the State of the Sector report. Minister, I'm mindful that Jess's presentation is she expects to be about 15 minutes long, which takes us beyond your cut-off point. If you wanted to jump in just to say farewell.
Okay, thank you very much.
Please do. Give me a nod.
We'd like you to do that.
Thank you, Jess.
No problem at all.
So Jess, I'll hand over to you, Jess.
Thank you very much, Martin. I'll just see if I can share my screen with me. Beth, can you give me a nod when you can see it?
I can see it. That helps.
That's lovely. Thank you. You've disappeared off screen, sadly. Okay. How do I get that out of the way? Oh, has that appeared in your screen now? Probably. There we go. Croeso pawb, prynhawn da. So, year on year, we are, oh dear, something's gone wrong. Bear with me, sorry. Is that working?
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, sorry about that, minor technical glitch. Year on year, we're seeing the potential for renewable energy grow. Increasingly, this focus is shifting to the marine environment and what can be realised from harnessing the power of the ocean in the form of wave, tide, and now floating wind. Marine Energy Wales brings together technology developers, the supply chain, academia, and the public sector, seeking to establish Wales as a global leader in the sustainable marine energy generation opportunity. Since 2015, Marine Energy Wales has been tracking the progress of the industry in Wales in order to capture members' contribution to realising this opportunity and demonstrating our progress as a sector. These clean, renewable energy sources can make a very real contribution to decarbonising our economy and achieving net zero targets. Not only are they clean sources, they are abundant, predictable, and crucially on our doorstep. With 1,680 miles of coastline, it is a very real and very accessible energy source for Wales. This report not only goes to show how investment and support in this blue economy can help to stimulate a green recovery to the economic fallout of COVID-19, but also how we can continue to realise the growth in this burgeoning global industry with an export market potentially worth £76 billion by 2050. As Martin mentioned, the 2020 edition of this report focuses on the financial year 2019 to 2020 and shows growing numbers and exciting findings from a survey of our members. So as of 2020, we have 16 marine energy developers actively progressing projects across Wales. We have array demonstration zones for both wave and tidal technology, Morlais in North Wales and Pembrokeshire Demonstration Zone in South Wales, which, as the Minister mentioned, forms part of the strategic Swansea Bay City Deal project. We also have seabed agreements in place for over 500 megawatts of marine energy sites, and further sites totaling almost 3.5 gigawatts have already been identified. So what's driving the sector here in Wales? With high ambitions for a low carbon economy and measures in place to realise these ambitions, we're well on our way to becoming a centre of excellence for marine technology. We're blessed with significant and diverse marine energy resources, including tidal range, tidal stream, wave, and floating offshore wind. Coupled with existing and developing infrastructure, including world-class deep water ports, grid access, a growing test centre network, and the skills and energy sector supply chains to support, alongside the offshore renewable energy catapult's presence in Wales with the new Marine Energy Engineering Centre of Excellence, also part of the Swansea Bay City Deal. These all bring highly qualified expertise and technical opportunity to our doorstep. The capability, capacity, and ambition to maximise this opportunity is right here in Wales. On top of all of this, as mentioned by the Minister, we have a government that's championing marine energy through the Welsh National Marine Plan, Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, International Strategy, and Natural Resources Policy. Policy is backed with significant funding, which again the Minister has touched on, 100 million euros of EU structural funding, the Swansea Bay City Deal project, which leverages to £60 million incoming to Wales, and further indications of a North Wales growth deal on the horizon. The consenting process has historically proven very challenging for marine renewable developers to navigate, and in order to support this, as we heard from the Minister, the Consenting Strategic Advisory Group has been set up. This was a direct result of the meeting that was instigated this time last year between the First Minister, the Minister herself, and Natural Wales and Natural Resources, and facilitates the collaboration of these key stakeholders, as well as technology developers and, crucially, environmental NGOs, providing a forum to discuss and find routes to resolve regulatory challenges associated with marine energy technology deployment. So what has all of this translated to? As mentioned, MEW have been compiling these statistics since 2015. Pan-Wales activity and investment is growing year on year. We've seen a further £27.5 million spent in the last year alone. This comprises of investment of £5 million into tidal stream and £16.5 million into wave energy developments. Since 2015, the sector has seen £123.7 million spent on marine renewable projects being developed in Wales. We'll hear later from some of the wave and tidal developers contributing to these impressive figures. Not to be underestimated, 2019 to 2020 also saw increasing interest in floating offshore wind. Whilst only representing circa £100,000 of expenditure regionally, this was associated with the news of energy giant Total's investment into Simply Blue's Celtic Sea project, Airbus. Coupled with the recent announcement of Energy and RWE's union to review the flow opportunity, this signifies a significant step change in the industry profile in Wales. Of significant interest and relevance, marine renewable development is driving low carbon economic growth in regions in Wales that need it the most. The peripheral coastal economies of both North and South West Wales are benefiting from the increasing investment and the associated job opportunities that come with it. In the last year, we've seen the recruitment of an additional 43 full-time employees into the sector, taking the total employment in these regions to over 160, often well-paid, highly skilled jobs. This equates to over 737 person years of full-time employment since 2015. Developments in these areas have also been relying on local skills, local services and infrastructure, thereby providing additional indirect economic benefits, not necessarily quantified within our reporting. Prospects for further employment look positive. A green recovery combined with indications of increased investment into the sector will undoubtedly bring in direct job opportunities as well as excellent prospects for diversification. Predictions for the UK as a whole see the wave and tidal stream sectors potentially supporting a total of 22,600 jobs by 2040. Crucially, 50 to 60% of the economic benefit of marine energy investment and jobs is expected to be generated in these coastal areas that need economic regeneration. Of the companies who have built or are currently building devices in Wales, our research indicates that at least 50% of their supply chain has come from within Wales to date. I think the Minister touched on a figure of 70%. I'm not sure why those differ. I suspect we probably haven't captured everything within our report. We're also seeing indications from projects under development that they aspire to a similar content of Welsh supply chain content of 50%. Supply chain companies across the country are also actively engaging with the sector. We as MEW actually have specific work packages for further engagement planned, looking to promote the awareness and diversification opportunities of this sector across sectors. Strategic collaboration and increasing sector awareness is leading to supply chain clusters forming around project development areas in North and South West Wales. And the industry is well poised to transfer skills and workforce from the oil and gas, automotive and aerospace industries, and can offer resilient prospects for companies facing challenges as a result of COVID-19 and Brexit. Some key examples of successful diversification into the industry can be found within our membership and are touched on within the report. Fawn Trackway, who specialise in portable roadways and landing mats for armed forces, has been working with Orbital Marine Power. Fawn Trackway identified the marine energy opportunity that they could fulfil and will manufacture the 4 steel anchor structures and bespoke mooring connectors for the first O2 device destined for Scottish deployment from their facilities in Llangefni, Anglesey. Furthermore, Orbital has signed an agreement to deploy an array of its technology at the Moorlice demonstration zone. Another key supply chain example is that of Mainstay. Mainstay Marine Solutions was an early mover to benefit from the growth in the marine renewable energy sector. They've completed the build and fabrication of a number of innovative prototyping projects to date. Originally a boat fabrication company based in Pembroke Dock, the first project Mainstay became involved with was the build of the Delta Stream device for Tidal Energy Limited. Subsequent successful contracts include converting a World War II water carrier into a wave energy converter for Wavetricity, constructing a pendulum wave energy converter for AMOG, and an ongoing build from Bombora, who you'll hear from later. Of note, both AMOG and Bombora are of Australian origin, highlighting that the potential for international inward investment for Wales is already being realised. With over 5 years' experience in the sector, manufacturing prototype builds and with ongoing contracts, Mainstay are a prime example of the capable and ambitious supply chain players we have here in Wales. As I touched on earlier, and as the Minister mentioned, Welsh Government are providing support through the £60 million Swansea-based city deal, with approval received just last month, and I have to confess it was just after we'd gone to print, sadly. Pembroke Dock Marine brings together the MEW, META and Pembrokeshire Demonstration Zone projects alongside the Port of Milford Haven's Pembroke Dock infrastructure development. The infrastructure development will ensure maximal operational efficiency by creating large open plan fabrication and laydown areas and enhance land to sea transition spaces, including a supersized slipway and dedicated berthing for workboats to meet the needs of modern industry. The port, alongside the partner strategic test, demonstration and innovation projects as part of this £60 million marine energy project, will ultimately help tackle climate change while simultaneously reviving Pembrokeshire's economy, creating a global example of best practice for zero carbon marine energy innovation. Please do keep an eye on our weekly newsletter for future webinars, which will include one about this exciting development. So how will MEW continue to help? With Welsh Government funding in place for the next 2 years, as a membership organisation, MEW will continue to provide support and guidance for the sector. We have a series of events planned through the course of the year, and these will be promoted through our weekly newsletters. Of particular note, tickets are already on sale for the MEW annual conference, and we welcome you along to that. We continue to represent the sector at Welsh, UK and European level, raising the profile of the sector and its needs, crucially including the pursuit of a meaningful revenue support mechanism through our various relationships. As Secretariat of CSAG, we are actively assisting in efforts to find solutions to getting our marine energy devices into the water whilst balancing the needs of the environment.
Yes. Yes, sorry to interrupt one second. I think the Minister's just about to leave us, so I didn't know if you wanted to make any final comment, Minister.
Yes, thank you, Martin, and thank you, Jess. I'm really sorry to have to go now. You know, I've got a very wide portfolio, and there's some issues around our meat processing plant, as you may have picked up. So I've had to arrange an emergency meeting this afternoon. I just wanted to thank you for your presentation, Jess, and also I've had a quick look at the report, which I have here to read in full. But I think some of the things that really struck me, particularly you will have picked up, obviously I represent Wrexham, and up here in North Wales we've just had the Airbus announcement of redundancies. We are going to see more of these type of redundancies, unfortunately, in light of COVID. So I think one of the things that was great to see in the report was you know, the wide range of supply chain diversification opportunities that have been available to so many Welsh businesses, and the number of developers that have been you know, looking at how they can develop their technology here in Wales, and that's only going to be good for the people of Wales. So, you know, I'm happy to do all I can. As you know, the First Minister is particularly interested in this form of energy. So please, you know, do keep me informed, and hope to be able to meet some of you in the not too distant future, and also attend some future events. So thank you very much for inviting me, and I'm really sorry to have to go now.
No,
thank you.
But thank you for joining us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Okay, Jess.
All right, thanks, Martin. So just to pick up, as a strategic gateway into the sector network, we're uniquely placed as Marine Energy Wales to promote Welsh capability, champion the Welsh opportunity, and encourage strategic relationships. We're also actively involved with specific projects in support of the sector. The £2.6 million Meta project is managed by ourselves and consists of 8 accessible test sites. I would go through all of this, but I think the Minister probably touched on all of it, so we'll probably make the slides available subsequently. I'll skip on that one. We're also involved in the Selkie project, funded by the European Regional Development Fund through the Ireland-Wales Cooperation Programme. Selkie is a cross-border project which is bringing together leading researchers and businesses to improve the performance of marine energy devices and technologies. Alongside Marine Energy Wales, multiple partners from Wales and Ireland aim to support the marine energy sector by developing tools and improving services that will assist developers and supply chain companies to progress towards commercialisation. This report clearly demonstrates the positive impacts marine energy continues to have in Wales. Positive impacts on peripheral economies where well-paid, high-skilled jobs are being created in coastal communities. Positive impacts on the local supply chain where the sector has provided diversification opportunities and resilience as pre-existing engineering markets slow in Wales. And positive impacts on inward international investment as innovative global companies set up their British and global headquarters here in Wales. Wales, along with other devolved nations and regions, are supporting marine energy for the socio-economic reasons highlighted in this report and for the contribution marine energy can make to our 2050 net zero targets. However, Wales's ability to benefit fully from this new low carbon opportunity will ultimately depend on demonstrating our technology in the water and UK government policy providing a route to market and appropriate revenue mechanism for the sector. In closing, in these times of COVID-19 and Brexit and the economic uncertainty surrounding them, I, for one, am hopeful of the potential for change that this industry represents and the momentum that is building around it. There is promise in this blue sector that can be realised as part of this green recovery. And I was going to refer back to the Minister, but unfortunately she's left. So, diolch am wrando pawb.
Jess, thank you so much for that. And the report is, of course, published today, and so you'll be able to read it in full. So now we move on to put the spotlight on some wave and tidal technology developments actually underway here in Wales as we speak. We hopefully will have 4 presentations for you, 2 on wave and 2 tidal. Some slight doubt about Minesto at the moment because Osian Roberts had a family emergency this morning and may not get back to us in time, but we'll see how we go with that. First though, we are going to ask Sam Leighton, the Managing Director of Bombora Wave Power, to talk to us about M-Wave. So over to you, Sam. You're on mute, Sam. There we go.
Oh, sorry, I'm just... Okay, can you hear me now, Martin?
I can. Thank you.
Very good. Well, thank you, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to present our story. So I guess maybe I'll just reflect on Bombora's story. So as some of you may know, Australia is quite well known for the innovation side. So there are quite a few companies that have emerged in this sector out of Australia. So Carnegie, you'd be familiar with, Ocean Links, and there are some tidal companies as well that have come out of Australia. And so there's been quite a lot of innovation done in Australia, but the issue is that they don't really have a good pathway to commercialise. And I guess as you know, we went through our pathway, so we've gone through scale testing in Australia, both in tank testing, and we'd also done work at a 3rd scale for 1 or 2 years in Australia. And we were looking to how to commercialise, and we saw that Europe was a great opportunity for us in terms of, I guess, the drive to the blue economy, or the green economy, and particularly Wales was welcoming, and they had a full ecosystem. So we looked over here with our partner NZN, who came in alongside us and gave us the finance to do this. We came here, welcomed by Marine Energy Wales, welcomed by the Welsh Government, And it's enabled us to grow a team, grow a very capable team in a whole ecosystem where we've access to a great supply chain as well. And so this whole setup has enabled us to grow quickly and I guess progress down this pathway of commercialisation. So I guess in terms of the main project we've got going on is our Pembrokeshire project here in Wales. And this is to basically take our technology and construct it into a full-scale device, a 1.5 megawatt M-Wave. This is a very expensive project, 18.4 million. And we'll be demonstrating that or testing it out in the Meta test site, so off the coast from Milford Haven. The status is that we're well progressed on construction, entering into the assembly phase. All the site consents are in place, and we've started the site works as well. And I guess we had planned that we'd be deploying late this year. With COVID-19, that has pushed back our timing a little bit, so we're now looking for deployment early in 2021. COVID-19 has been a bit of a disruption in terms of supply chain, but interestingly, it's also given us a chance as our engineering team to take stock of where we are and look at our designs and really consolidate our learnings from the project thus far. So just in terms of where we are today, so we've talked about Mainstay, you've heard about them. They're a very major part of our supply chain. This gives you an example of the type of work we're doing today in terms of construction. This steel structure here is half of an M-Wave. So if I go back to the previous slide. So the steel structure I just showed you is half of one of these, this section here. So it's a very large structure we're building. So this is the work being done down at Mainstay. Also very busy here at Altrad, also in Pembroke Dock. So this is a cell module, or one of the cell modules that will be transported across to Mainstay for final assembly in the coming days. So this is currently all in construction, and it's brown. It'll be transported on the 12th across to Mainstay, and it'll be looking bright and shiny yellow at that time. And I guess the great thing for us has been the engagement with the local supply chain has meant very close engagement between our engineering team and the supply chain. And with these innovative new early stage projects, that's been very important to enable us to move forward. So at the same time as the construction's been going on, we've also been doing site works out at the deployment site. So this is the installation of the ducting for the offshore umbilical. So we have an onshore control station up on the Pembrokeshire coast, and then our M-Wave will be deployed off the coast from there. So in terms of where we are today, we're going through the final construction phase, bringing together all parts, a lot of them sourced out of Wales, some sourced from other parts of the globe. Entering the final assembly phase with deployment early in 2021. And the major, I guess, aspects around that, we need to demonstrate that we will survive the big storms that we get here in Wales. And we need to confirm the performance of the power generation from the structure. And we'll be getting third-party endorsement and validation of that as we go forward. So I guess that's where we are. And this project is all about proving the technology works and that can then lead into products. So the main parts we're proving are the cell module here and the PTO. And that can be used, these key components can then be used either for the fixed type M-Wave. So this is attached to the seabed. It can be then attached onto floating platforms such as this one. We can then integrate that into offshore wind parks, offshore floating wind parks. And in the future, we can even consider integrating solutions as well. So right now, I guess we're validating the components, which then lead us down the path of the fixed M-Wave, which we're doing here at Pembrokeshire, but certainly opening up a much greater opportunity for us. And in terms of the next stage development, in terms of floating, we've teamed up with the ORE Catapult, who are doing research for us into this area here right now, and looking at the dynamics of these sorts of structures and the costing of this structure as well. So very excited to be working with the Catapult, or here in Pembrokeshire, I suppose it's called the MEW Programme, which is part of the Catapult. So very excited to be engaging with them at this first stage, and we look forward to continuing our partnership as well. And I guess importantly, as we go forward, we'll be having new partnerships in this area here. So a very important part of the MEW technology is the fact that it's modular. So I talked about the cell modules and the PTO module. We can apply them into modest sized MEWs, but we can also scale it up. And I guess reflecting on what's happened in the wind industry, it's very important that your product can scale up through the megawatt scales. And that will drive down the LCOE, which is critical for us. I guess another key thing about our technology is the fact that these components, the key components, are removable as modules, and so that aids the serviceability. So we can change at sea these modules, and we can, I guess they're being designed for interchange or service exchange. Okay, so this is our first product, the fixed MEW, and I guess as I mentioned, this COVID-19 period has enabled us to take stock of our design work, update the earlier work we've done on our LCOE project that was initially done through Worley Parsons, but it certainly enabled us to, I guess, take all learnings from this project thus far and redo our costing and, I guess, look ahead at our plan for commercialisation. So, as I mentioned, the first product range is the fixed MEW, and then we have this floating solution. And I guess the central picture here gives you some idea about how we would integrate into offshore floating wind farms, and shows the potential here for a very significant increase in the utilisation of that space and the utilisation of the infrastructure that's involved in these floating offshore wind farms. So we're very excited about that as a future opportunity, and we're looking forward to doing a follow-up project here in Wales, where we take this from basically, the early concept work we're doing with the Catapult through to a real product. Okay, as I said, we've had time over the last few months to really look at our LCOE, and driving down that cost is going to be key for us being able to roll out our product into the global marketplace. And so we're taking all those learnings and now pump that back into our costing models. And we see a very positive roadmap in terms of how we're going to drive down our LCOE. It does also indicate to us very clearly, though, that we need to be targeting strong wave climates in these early years. As you can see, the sensitivity around that, the wave climate to our LCOE. So I guess this is all the current activities. In terms of our next stage for us, we're looking very closely at the project off in the Canary Islands. And so this project is currently going through the consenting phase. So we've been getting the grid connection organised, doing the wave climate surveys, and doing the bathymetry surveys up in the site on the north side of Lanzarote. So this project is now moving into the project financing phase. Okay, so I guess this discussion is more about what we're doing in Wales, though. And so I guess I'd say, we've moved our headquarters to Wales. Our team is all here. We were once upon a time an Australian company. Now I think we're pretty much a Welsh company. Certainly our staff are Welsh, and a lot of them are located here in Southwest Wales. We have been growing our team. Exciting times for us in terms of the fact that we've already strengthened our board with very experienced people from the finance sector and from the project sector, particularly in the wind sector. We've also, commercialisation is very important for us, and I guess the building of our strategic relationships is very important. So we're excited to be welcoming Rembrandt to the team, and also moved our CFO operation here to the UK as well. So we're seeing a real strengthening of the team and a growth in our commitment to this area. Okay, so back to Wales and what's happening here. I guess this project by itself, the Pembrokeshire project, has resulted in inward investment of 18.4 million into the region. 85% of those contracts have been awarded already, so a very significant commitment on our part into this the project. More than 80% of it is coming from the UK, and certainly our largest contracts are coming locally. So this to Mainstay, Marine and to Altrad. I guess in terms of commitment to this area, we've grown our staff from a fairly small team when we started off at 4, now grown to 26, and offering really highly skilled opportunities in this region. We do have grand plans, and our plans show that we'll be tripling up that workforce over the next 3 years. And I guess that's just our direct employment, but right now there are 45 jobs outside of the company through our supply chain. So yeah, I'd say very positive in terms of the economic impact in this region. And I guess very strong, I guess it's been a pathway for us. We started off with a partnership with NZ. I came in as a major investor. Marine Energy Wales, very important to welcome us into Wales. But then the very strong support from Welsh Government and through the EIDF and WEFO have enabled us to then grow and engage through the supply chain. So yeah, it's been a great story for us in terms of the ability to grow the company in this region, and we're looking forward to the next stage. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Sam. Thank you very much indeed for that. Just a note that's cropped up in the chat, just to say that when we come to the question and answer session, if you have a question specifically for any of our panelists, please could you indicate and point to the panelist who you wish the question to be addressed to, and we'll do our best to answer that in the Q&A session. So moving on, we're now going on to Marine Power Systems, and Gareth Stockman, the Managing Director from MPS, who also are wave energy developers, but also have an interest in floating wind too. I think, Gareth, you will probably tell us.
Yeah, correct. Can you hear me, Martin?
I can hear you very clearly, Gareth, thank you.
My presentation up?
I can see us, yeah, see that too, thank you.
Lovely. So yeah, thanks everybody, and again, thanks for the opportunity to speak this afternoon about how we are contributing to the sector. Looking forward to giving everyone the update. Before I dive into that, I'll just steal just 1 minute of the presentation. Hopefully this isn't any news for everyone, and as Martin just alluded to, we are developing a multiple number of products. So our portfolio contains our proprietary technology, the wave sub, which is for capturing wave energy clearly, and then we'd have the wind sub, which is standalone for offshore floating wind, and then the dual sub, which is of a combination of capturing both offshore wind energy and wave energy. And it has a number of advantages, and if you're not familiar with our product portfolio, please do have a look on our website. And this is why we're doing it. The end game and the vision for Marine Power Systems is to have a technology that can optimize the extraction of both of those sources of energy and give the best return on investment per square foot of seabed. But this presentation isn't about exactly or standalone what we're doing as a company on our technology. It's about how we've contributed to the sector and our plans going forward. So I'm just going to concentrate on that. So to date, the team's done a significant amount, and the biggest project that we've achieved in the culmination of many years' work since we founded the company back in 2008 was the testing of a scaled prototype, a scaled wave sub prototype, to demonstrate a number of the USPs of the device, like its simple deployment, low cost maintenance, its power output capability, and survivability, and many other functions of the device. And we demonstrated that at sea, down in Fab Test, completing that project the back end of 2018, early 2019, with some ongoing works. And it went very well, and probably many of you have heard me or Graham, the CTO, present about that project, which is a WEFO funded project. And obviously, as expected, we've done a significant amount of other work in the background, computational simulation, smaller scale prototype testing in wave tanks. So just reflecting a little bit on that quarter scale project, which, as I say, we've completed some time ago, we're proud to say that we made that device in Wales. We used over 85 companies in Wales in the supply chain, significant number of companies. And you can see just a few examples here. So the reactor structure, assembly and commissioning by Ledwood Mechanical Engineering predominantly. The power takeoff float by Camplas, a company based down in Bridgend. The rope guiding system by 3K's Engineering up in Lesley. And we also use people like Mainstay and many others, as you'd expect. And then the deployment, installation and testing. We have had then and continue to have significant support from Marine Energy Wales, the Milford Haven Port, and Lease Marine were one of the main contractors that helped throughout our marine operations, deployment and recovery, and Williams Shipping. So, you know, just a variety of some of the fantastic companies that we have on our doorstep, which is great here in Wales. Relating that to some kind of numbers, I know the State of the Sector report is anonymous, and you know everyone's fed in, which is great that we've all done that. But we're I guess quite proud of the figures, as clearly others should be and are. So for the quarter scale project, we'd like to share these figures. The quarter scale project that we completed, 5 million alone was spent inward investment in MPS in achieving that. 11 full-time equivalent jobs in Wales. We've expanded since, but that was for the quarter scale project, equating to 70 person years employment in Wales. And more than 60% of that supply chain came from Welsh-based companies. So hopefully, you know, a significant achievement already. Plans going forward, we're on a 4-year WEFO funded project as we speak. We started that in mid-2019 and we achieved 12.8 million grant funding, which we greatly received from WEFO towards our full-scale wave sub demonstrator. And this project is going to help reduce the risk, get us to a blueprint for our first commercial scale builds. Again, happy to discuss about this project, potentially at another webinar, another date, or at an MEW group. But in a nutshell, it's a design, build, full-scale demonstrator, using hopefully much of the Welsh supply chain, and to get that certified. So I think this is the interesting slide, and I'll spend a little bit of time on this. But this is our plans and progress. So I talked about starting from the top left, our full-scale wave sub operation. As I mentioned, 12.8 million from WEFO, but it's actually a 17.5 million operation in total. And we have an aspiration to achieve at least 50% content, again here from Wales. We are expanding the team already, and so we're going to have at least 20 plus staff by the time that operation's completed, based here in Wales. So again, significant spend in Wales, which is good for us in a number of highly skilled jobs. Moving forward, taking a trajectory that it shouldn't be any surprise to anyone. Other companies in the renewable energy sector have followed this well-trodden path, and it's one that we look to do as well. So moving from a 50 megawatt first demonstrator array, hopefully somewhere like South Pembrokeshire Demonstration Zone, TBC, but that's obviously again fantastic that the Minister's already mentioned and Jess has mentioned about money that's gone into there to get that going. And then moving up to industrial scale installations of 100 megawatt plus farms, and eventually, obviously, the dream and the vision for not just marine power systems, but any tech developer who's looking to sell hardware is to get these devices sold on an industrial scale, so we can have, gigawatt plus farm installations. So that's the pathway. Moving back to that first pre-commercial demonstrator array of 50 megawatts. We're looking and anticipate investing back in Wales at least 60 million plus by 2025. That's made up partly of that £17.5 million, close to a third of that amount of money, and an additional 40 million out by 2025, when we'll be starting our first manufacturing assembly of the first devices for that first demonstrator array. So, good news on the horizon. Yes, plenty of work to achieve that, and many other factors to take into account, like support mechanisms and subsidies. But that's what we're aspiring to do, and that's what we're on track to achieve. And again, that'll be hundreds of jobs supported both indirectly and directly in MPS. Similar to Bombora, we expect a significant internal workforce by the time we've reached that stage. And it will be supporting a number of jobs in the supply chain and further afield. Obviously, we've had to make some, our business plan has to look forward and see what we'll be achieving, and all being well, and if we achieve our milestones, we'll be looking to inward invest more than 1.7 billion by circa 2030 from our plans of starting that manufacturing facility of our devices for both offshore floating wind devices, wave energy devices, and combined wind and wave energy devices, dual sub, to get those manufactured and deployed from potentially in Wales, which have got a number of fantastic sites that we're already looking into, especially down in Pembroke Portway. And then moving forward, I've got a bit more on this in the next slide, but clearly for the people and the companies, and hopefully with all the support that we have here in Wales, which is frankly fantastic, the prize at the end for all of us, in addition to reducing carbon emissions and getting a security of supply in our home nation, is the export potential and the revenue potential that comes with it. And a good example that we always use is that of Vestas, who hopefully a well-known company to all of us on this webinar, being in the renewable sector, but Vestas 17% market share of all wind turbine hardware sales, turning over 10 billion annually revenue with 35,000 employees across the globe, which is a fantastic achievement for a first adopter, an early mover of a company that made sure that they got a foothold in that industry. And that is the potential, a true, genuine potential for marine power systems or any other company who are working in this sector at the moment. And just by comparison, if you look at some of the top companies across the UK, and some of these are based in Wales, very companies are doing particularly well. Airbus, Admiral, based in Wales, Red Row Homes, all turning over close to £2 billion a year, with thousands of employees, but cumulatively Vestas is achieving the same output. And so that's why although in addition to those environmental and social benefits, there's a huge number of economic benefits for us to get these industries to succeed in Wales. I kind of rattled through, but I think this is my last slide, and I guess this is the culmination of one of the key points that we're talking about today is how's marine power systems and other companies going to help us post-COVID in the green economy. So short term, I've talked quite a bit about it. We've got a very clear picture and a very clear pathway that we're operating on right now. It's a design, manufacture and test our full-scale demonstrator, and that's happening and it's going very well. 17+ million operation, say an aspiration for a significant amount, if not 50% of that, to be spent in Wales. So that's good news. That's kind of a given. It is happening already. and supports the supply chain. But going forward, I think this is the key messages of medium to long term. So probably well known, but worth reminding ourselves that IEA, the International Energy Agency, are predicting that to meet our global energy demands are going to increase by 30% between now and 2040, which isn't far away, equivalent of adding another China and India to our energy requirements. So significant, this market isn't going, it's just expanding actually. And marine energy, this is talked about by MEW, Ocean Energy Europe, Renewable UK and others. We're saying, well, actually there's potential to supply 20% of this global energy electricity demand by 2050 from marine renewable energy sources, which will significantly contribute to the decarbonisation of Wales if we can achieve some of that here. And that's clearly what MPS is setting out to do. In terms of the economic potential, the market to support this is predicted to be many tens of billions. The wind turbine hardware market is almost at $100 billion a year. So, big numbers, not big numbers that we just expect to rattle off the top of our head, but these are facts. These are actual genuine figures that are there to be had. It may well have surpassed 100 billion by now. This particular slide has been used for some time, so it may have reached that. That's the upshot, that's the potential. MPS anticipates or plans to be one of a small number of companies that are going to share this opportunity in the floating offshore wind and wave space, which translates to a multi-billion turnover company, and then all the benefits of inward investment that come with it back in Wales. And I mentioned a number of times now, Vestas is doing this, and we think that we can do it as well. It's the end of my presentation. Thanks, Martin.
Gareth, thanks very much indeed. That's excellent timing. Thank you. So now moving on from wave to the tidal stream sector, we have Osian Roberts from Minesto. Delighted that Osian, you've managed to join us today. So I think we're setting you up to give your presentation. So when you're ready, Osian, over to you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Can you hear me is the first question.
I can hear you, yes.
Okay, I'm just going to share my screen. So hopefully you'll be able to see that in 1 second.
Yeah, I can see that.
So can you see the actual slide, or is it in the presenter mode, or are you seeing the slides at the side? So just for me to make sure.
I'm seeing the full screen slide.
Okay, perfect. Just bear with me. Okay, yes, again, thank you for the opportunity to come and present to you today. My name is Osian Roberts, and I'm a business development manager for Minesto, and I am based here in Wales, actually, in the Hollyhead office. As you can see there on our first slide, it's a picture that some of you may not have seen before. We've presented some of these things for quite a while now, but we've been showing the actual full-scale kite that we've been developing and operating in Wales. But as you can see here, it's a picture of a rather different turbine with the same principle that will be the sort of second generation of the kites we're looking to install in across our business. And this kite here looks exactly it's the same type of turbine we're working on installing in the Faroe Islands right now as we speak, but we'll talk a little bit about that as we move ahead. I'm going to give a short introduction to the company and to the technology, and then talk about what we've been doing and what the potential is for us in Wales, and maybe close with some areas of policy that we need to sort of look into in order to sort of make the most of what we call this green recovery potential going forward. For those of you who don't know, Minesto, we state there, an equipment provider of game-changing renewable energy technology, and we're technology developers in tidal stream, and that's low-flow tidal streams. So we, different to sort of conventional tidal stream technology, we have this turbine that I'm hoping you can see the video working, that flies in this figure of 8 motion you see there, multiplying the flow of the tide through its turbine, generating electricity through that turbine down the tether and into the grid when that's supported. We were founded 2007, Saab spin-off group, Saab group spin-off, I should say, and we have our main offices are in Sweden, where the head office in Gothenburg. We have an office in the UK where we've been working hard on the utility scale site here in Wales, and also in Taiwan. And the sort of UK headquarters, as it was in Wales, you know, we concentrate there on the marine operations arm of Minesto, and we base ourselves in Hollyhead on Anglesey, and we've been there for maybe 5 or 6 years now. And for us, you can see that stat there at the bottom. You know, we have 100 million euros invested to date in this technology, and that's a combination of private sector investment. We're publicly listed on the Nasdaq First North in Stockholm in Sweden, and also we've been very successful in reaching out to the Welsh government and being awarded funding through WEFO for our first phase in the UK, first and second phase projects in the UK. I'll just move forward. This is a really interesting slide, actually. You know, and we talk about, I show you sort of global potential here, but it's really important that I show you that even from a Wales context, because what we have in Wales right now, if I take that one first, you've got Hollyhead, the potential to develop what we say is an 80 megawatt site, but an 80 megawatt and beyond site, as we like to call it, you know, a commercial farm producing that amount of power out there in Hollyhead. You know, we have the agreement for lease there since 2014, and we run a lease where we've been progressing our initial utility scale turbine right there. But as well as moving from that initial scale turbine into a second generation turbine right now, we've also been establishing this sort of world-class asset. Where you see on the left-hand side there, this is our new sort of assembly and maintenance facility, which we had hoped to launch actually before the COVID lockdown was upon us. So that's been fitted out now, and right there, it's a really essential piece of our sort of logistics offering, able to develop and test all we need to do to get that manufacturing of our turbine where it needs to be. Again, if we talk about the supply chain in Wales, you know, the state of the sector report, it outlines it there briefly. You know, we have 23 full-time equivalent jobs since the beginning, and we have 40 companies with 70% of our supply chain. We've been able to source that locally, and I'd like to call that sort of hyper-local, if I'm honest, because a lot of that is in actual Anglesey or North Wales itself. So it's a very good statistic when we talk about Wales. Not only have we been able to use them, but the quality of the offer from the suppliers has been really outstanding, and exactly what we've been needing to resource. And just a quick anecdote on that. You know, we have all this technology, and we have these fancy components coming from anywhere, and we have, you know, one of our suppliers, and the point is here is to tell you that, you know, wherever the suppliers are, they can be key in delivering the success of your project. And this person, he owns a boat, and he's been able to transfer our crew back and forth to the site, and he's been an absolutely key part of what we're able to do. And in fact, you know, we wouldn't have been able to show the success we have without that one key piece of the supply chain right there. I'll talk about the potential in the Irish Sea just a little bit in a second in my next slide. But if I move to the Faroe Islands, and I suppose a lot of people may have heard what we're doing in the Faroe Islands right now, and that is again very interesting. The progression there we'll see has been able to generate up to 70 megawatts of power from a commercial farm. But right there, we are using what we call a microgrid ready product to install in Westmaniston in the Faroe Islands as we speak, and that's going very well. And that will be the first pilot installation with the utility customer already in place in the Faroe Islands for us right there. And that's going very well. We have an office in Taiwan, as I say. We're looking into sites there. We're also looking into sites to exploit the energy from the Gulf Stream in the US, and recently in Brittany, we have entered into a collaboration as part of the EU Tiger project with EDF to install a 100 kilowatt pilot installation in the north of Brittany in the next 18 months or so. I talked about 80 megawatts, but clearly Gareth was talking to before me on their sort of global potential there for MPS, and I want to just focus in a little bit more on just what we can do here with the IREC, just what we can resource in terms of energy from the IREC should the policy context be right, should should we be able to access the grid as we need to. So if we take the areas of the IREC where we're looking to exploit, as I say, we need a tidal resource within a certain speed at a certain depth. And on the right hand side here, you can clearly see that all the IREC area of the IREC that we can deploy into is, is upwards of sort of 15 to 18 gigawatts of power using the deep green technology in its utility scale form. And this study is a third-party study on our behalf, so it's not us coming up with this. It's what we're coming up with others to try and ratify our aim of becoming a really world-leading technology provider in this industry. And then to support that, we talk about green recovery. And in order to recover, we know that the resource is there, but we also know that there's a little way to go for our industry in order to get where we need to be, in order to bring in project finance to capitalize on that resource, and to then that has the effect where it increases the supply chain possibility for diversification and clustering and the expanding of that offer in the local supply chain or the national supply chain. So if we say we're looking at sort of 2050 net zero targets, and this is by a company called Cambridge Econometrics, with the existing policy offer, there remains this small gap in policy where we need to be in terms of energy production to get to this net zero by 2050. And right now, what are we looking to do? We can't fill it anywhere else. And my point here is that we have this industry ready to go. We have this industry with this global expansion potential right here on our doorstep in Wales, where we can use the facilities we have to expand and to manufacture what we need to do to offer this to the world and to the UK. This industry is ready to go, and we're best placed, I think, with world-leading technology and world-leading resources to certainly contribute to the green recovery plan. Again, this is my last slide, really. I've already touched on it. We do need policy support. The green recovery is there for the taking. We can contribute. We can be world leading. We want to do it from Wales, and we want to do it with Welsh companies or UK companies, but we need to make sure that we're supported by a proper route to market, whether that's through revenue supports in UK government, whether that's through the Welsh government, and also a smooth and pain-free consenting regime. That's my last slide, but it's an important slide. I think it's out from our site in Hollyhead Deep. That's our DG 500 kites, and it's been raised from the sea after producing power for one of the very first times at that scale anywhere in the world. This is a really important slide for the history of Minesto and the beginnings of a tidal stream industry in Wales. Thank you.
Osian, thank you very much indeed for that. Really good progress to see. Thank you indeed. Okay, so our last panelist presentation now comes from Alejandro Marques de Magallanes, who is the Business Development Manager at Magallanes Renewables. Alejandro, I hope I didn't distort that pronunciation too badly for you. But we very much look forward to hearing what you've got to say about your potential work in Wales too. So over to you.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm going to try to share my presentation. Let's see if you can see that properly.
Yeah. Yeah, perfect.
Perfect. Okay, fantastic. Well, so yes, I'm Alejandro Marques. I'm going to talk on behalf of MEW Renovables. We are a Spanish tidal energy company. And I'm going to talk you a little bit through our story and how we develop our technology. And afterwards, I'm going to explain a little bit more about our future presence in Wales. Well, as I said, we are a Spanish company, in particular in the northwest of Spain, from Galicia, which is a land very similar to Wales, regarding the landscape, and also we have a Celtic heritage, so we feel really identified with Wales. And our story begins in this area mainly because our founder is a sailor. He's always sailed for all his life, and on one of his trips, he sailed down to the Gibraltar Strait, where he was amazed by the strength of the currents there. He couldn't believe how strong the currents were, and he was also amazed by the way that these currents were were caused by the tides, and that could be timed, and that you could schedule your trip depending on the tide and depending on this current. So doing some more research, he found out that some studies prove that 16% of the world energy need could be produced with tidal energy. And back then in 2007, when all this happened, our founder, well, in the industry, there wasn't much, there was some development, but there wasn't any commercial technologies available. So he went on and he gathered a team, and they started to try to have an idea of what would be the ideal technology. So they knew that it had to be robust, because some of the technology that had tried before had failed because of the rough conditions of the sea and the tidal currents. It needed to be of high output, easy to manufacture, and easy to maintain, because some structures are very difficult to maintain on these sites. So what this team did, and led by the founder, was to look, our company, even though we are a technological company, we are technology risk averse. We don't like to take technological risks. We want to focus only on the risks on the technology that is that is absolutely essential for us. So we look at two mature industries, which are the wind turbine industry and the naval industry. Two very mature industries that are both present in where we are from, in Galicia. So trying to combine these two technologies, we came out to the solution to do it in the simplest way, which is to literally put a windmill under a boat. So in the picture at the right, you can see our first platform, the ATIR being deployed. This is a 1.5 megawatt platform, and this is the result of this first idea of combining a a windmill, well, in fact, 2 windmills with a boat. As you can see in the picture below, that is literally what we have done. The whole structure and the whole structure is designed by naval engineers, naval architects, and all the machinery and everything that's inside comes from off the shelf from the wind industry. So we only had to design the rotors and of course all the control system, but our aim was to make this as simple as possible so that it could also be economically viable, not only technologically viable, so that one day we could deploy more and make, and if it's not economically viable, it won't be successful. So we reached our goals with this first platform. Right now, this platform is in the Orkney Islands and it's being tested and optimized to reach. It's very close to reaching the full validation, and after that it comes its commercialization. The system is very simple. The platform is anchored, has a redundant anchoring on both sides. So as the tide rises, it creates a current on one direction, and these tidal currents cause the blades to rotate, and these blades power the generator just as a windmill would do, and produces electricity. This electricity is taken to shore to a substation through an undersea cable, and this substation is connected to the grid and takes the electricity to our homes. And the interesting and the best thing is that when the tide lowers and the current goes in the opposite direction, the other chain works, and we have a pitch system that rotates the blades, and it's as efficient and works as well in both directions. So as I explained, our past is in Spain, where we developed our first prototypes, and we would tow them because we don't have where we are from in Galicia, we don't have currents, so we had to tow with a towing boat to simulate the currents. And there we started the first tests on the first ATIR. Right now, our present is in Scotland, where we are testing and optimizing our ATIR 1, the full-scale 1.5 megawatt platform. And our future comes necessarily to Wales, which is the point of the arrow that is pushing, in our opinion, tidal energy in the world mainly. So with the project Modular, we plan to deploy at first 20 platforms, which will be 30 megawatts, and of course, with that deployment and with all that deployment requires an infrastructure and a supply chain behind that is amazing. And we've seen this from our presence in Scotland. We only have one prototype, our first platform, and we've moved many different companies around it, towing boats, mechanics, divers, and many other, of course, accommodation. And we also have some part of the team there in Scotland, so that will only be multiplied in Wales. Well, we plan also to do the fabrication and the final assembly, all the permitting and consenting, the vessel hire, the environmental monitoring, all the operational maintenance, all the port facilities, office space. We will have to do a full deployment and in Wales. This is why we would transform from a Spanish company really to a UK, to a Welsh company. And we are very happy to do so, because in the past when we went to Wales to the event in February, we're very glad to see all the welcoming we had and all the huge supply chain that is ready for us to go there and to grow with them. So we are very happy to be there so soon. And right now we think that we are facing a dual challenge. It's not the same dual challenge as the minister pointed, which was COVID and the Brexit. In this case, I'm talking about the increasing demand of energy and the reduction of emissions needed. As global economy grows, the demand of energy will increase, and that has to match with all the regulations for emission reduction. And there is a need a real need, environmental ways to shift to a lower carbon energy system. And the decarbonization requires more renewables, and ocean energy is key in this transition for two reasons. First of all, because it's uncorrelated to wind and other sources and solar and other sources of renewable energy. And second of all, because it is fully predictable. This means that this energy can become a base energy instead of a base energy such as like nuclear or coal is. So here comes the end of my presentation. Thank you very much. Please feel free to contact me for any further questions. This is my email, and thank you very much for the opportunity to be here.
Alejandro, thank you very much, and we look forward to welcoming you to Wales. So we have some time now for questions. There are 5 or 6 questions in the Q&A box at the moment. What I would probably like to do is address those questions to our guest panelists first of all, and see where we go from there. So first of all, there are a couple here for you, Osian. One anonymous saying, do you mean you are generating electricity in the Faroes now when you say it's going very well? Can you clarify that for us, please?
Yes, I can definitely clarify that for you. Yeah, you'll have seen in the press recently that we are moving to install in the Faroes right now. So we are installing the kite systems as we speak, and that installation process is going very well.
Okay, so there was another one for you, Osian, from Alexander Eriksson, who asks, when is the production facility ready?
You're talking about the assembly, the hall in Hollyhead. That is up. That picture was a real world picture. We're just completing the fit out of that right now. And we had hoped, like I say, to launch it before we were all put under lockdown. And we've already been doing some small pieces of work there. So it's as ready as it can be. We're just waiting to be able to officially sort of launch that assembly hall.
Okay, thanks. And there's another one for you, you're a popular man. So from Joe Kidd from the Catapult, what differences does the microgrid ready device have compared to the standard device? Sounds quite technical.
Yes, and I'm not a technical guy. However, it's the same principle, of course. It's a new product line, if you will, but it serves 2 purposes. So if you imagine, first of all, at that scale, we can prototype things much quicker, bringing it to a utility scale level. So you'll see the learning from that sort of type of prototype moving into our next generation turbine at Hollyhead. It will look a lot more like that. Clearly, the different depths involved will shorten or lengthen the tether depending on which way we go there. And again, if we call it a deep green microgrid device, it can open up a whole new market, not just the sort of utility scale market that we've been targeting in Wales, but also that market that involves providing power to peripheral communities, to microgrids, wherever they may be throughout the world.
Okay, thanks, Osian. Okay, Sam, looking to you here, there's a question from Tony Lewis, which asks, is there a permitting and consenting system available in Wales for project development? Yes, there is the short answer, but given your experiences with Bombora on the East Pickard site. Could you expand a little bit on those experiences and your engagement with NRW, for example?
Yes, sure. Thank you. So yes, there is a clear process for consenting sites in Wales, and we had a very good experience. The process was, I guess, supported at all levels of both Welsh Government and both at NRW, and the process was expedited. And so yes, our experience has been very good. It does seem there is a clear process, and you simply work through the process.
Okay.
I'm not sure, Tony, if you want more details, but do we have any representative from NRW in the call?
Yes, we do. Have we anybody who's willing to speak to us? Put a hand up from the attendees. Anybody would like to come in from NRW? Can't see anybody responding at the moment.
But I think also Jess probably has some experience in this area as well, don't you, Jess?
I do indeed. I was just going to pipe up actually. So quite interestingly, we presented to the NRW team earlier today. They have, as I think Lesley, the Minister, referenced, NRW have just recruited the Offshore Renewable Energy Programme team into NRW in support of the consenting process that they have. It is quite a complex process. There's a lot of stages to it. I think Bombora, so their site is actually immediately adjacent, or well, actually within one of our meta sites, and sort of we're able to take advantage of the fact that we've done a number of the steps that preceded the Bombora marine licensing experience in terms of the initial engagement with NRW, the screening and the scoping. So when we actually came to the consenting process, it just drew in the kind of marine license requirement and the engagement with the stakeholders involved in that. There are multiple stakeholders, as I say, so that does make it a bit more complicated. As MEW, we do actually host a website that talks you through it. Unfortunately, that is a little outdated at the moment, and we're working directly with NRW. As I mentioned in my presentation, the Consenting Strategic Advisory Group is looking at how we facilitate that process. Whilst it does exist, and it has very clear steps, there are a lot of them, and there's a lot of fingers in the pie to try and satisfy and make sure everything is kind of brought together. And we're working as part of that group, which pulls in key organisations such as the ENGOs, as well as Welsh Government, NRW, and the developers, to look at facilitating getting development through that process. And we're hopeful that we'll begin to sort of build momentum with that and realise some of the real opportunities in the near future. Just also to reference, NRW has actually put, as part of that CSAG group, a series of landing pages together, which I believe have been published, and we can provide a link to that probably in part of our pack that we send out after this. Is that what we're doing after this, Beth? Other slides, I can include it in my slide, that's no problem.
Yeah, in fact,
yeah.
Jess Hooper has just picked up on chat as well and said that NRW has updated their website with the landing page for marine renewables, so that will help. On the consenting side, a question's coming in thick and fast now, thank you. Talking about environmental impact, here's one that Gareth, you might like to think about. The question says, can you please discuss the environmental impact of turbines in the water, and also the floating wind turbine in terms of impact on wildlife, birds, etc. Now, I know your device is a wave device specifically, but thinking about the floating wind element of the work that you're undertaking, perhaps you could talk about that in that context to start with.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to just briefly mention about the wave as well. I mean, during our wave energy study down in Fab Test, we had no negative environmental impacts that we were made aware of. We did some work with CCAMs who had some acoustic and monitoring, salinity detection equipment on our platform, and there's had no adverse effects. And I can't remember the study that came out. It's been on most of the sector news outlets recently, but saying about no negative impacts discovered from tidal energy devices. I can't comment on that. I wasn't part of that study, and we're not a tidal energy developer. But I think there are more and more reports coming out now saying, we're not having huge detrimental impacts on the ecosystem. And certainly, if that was the case, then we'd be on a little bit of a stop, and none of us want that. Wind turbine. Any negative impacts, bird studies, etc. It is early days for us on our wind energy development. So we have a project, some funding, significant funding, to do a scaled wind sub-device down in Cornwall. So we haven't actually tested at a significant scale at sea a wind turbine device yet. So I can't comment on, what any impacts we've observed during testing. We haven't reached that stage with our proprietary devices, the wave subs. We haven't reached that stage. As part of the consenting for the site, does have to be bird studies to take place, and that's something that like fab tests will be doing if we decide to test at fab tests, and that's something that sites will do. And I guess, I don't know, again, can't talk on behalf of Meta or anything, maybe Jess knows, but if you're planning on ever doing offshore wind, those studies will have to take place, but that's not something we're doing as a company or have had to do yet, so I can't really comment on that. Obviously, we hope to have no negative impacts, but that's an aspiration.
I can possibly come in and help a little there. So in terms of environmental impacts, so the consenting process that I touched on earlier, of that to satisfy the regular needs and to inform how they're shaping their decisions, we have to do a number of assessments, a lot of monitoring to understand what's already there, to establish a baseline, and then look at how our insertion of that technology into that environment is likely to impact on those receptors. And there's a lot of work goes into that, and a lot of data available to inform that, and the regulators are very well informed. At the moment, there is actually a paper out called the State of Science, a report that was released approximately 2 weeks ago. I suspect we've probably got that referenced on our website somewhere. It's open for consultation at the moment, and it talks about all of those principal risks that we're talking about when we talk about wave and tidal technology going into the water. I don't think it touches on floating offshore wind, but there will be a lot of material out there on floating or on fixed wind. And the key examples that you've got up in Scotland that are deploying floating offshore wind will also be looking at those assessments to understand them better. So there is data out there. It is collated in various forms. It sits within different nations to some extent, and I think it's one of the kind of factors for consideration within the Consenting Strategic Advisory Group is how we pull that data from those different national locations and bring it together and share it to enable this industry to proceed in harmony without detrimental impact to the environment.
Thanks, Jess. Alejandro, I mean, given your experience with your device up at EMEC, is there anything you can offer or add to that from your direct experiences?
Well, I subscribe to everything that's been said by Gareth and Jess, and of course, yes, before any deployment, a study on the environmental impact will have to be done. And in our case, because we are the EMEC in the north of Scotland, in the Orkney Islands, the EMEC has done this tower study, and we also keep monitoring mammals, and we see, for now, we see no impact. We only see that birds love our platform, and they create a mess every time. Every once in a while, we have to go there and clean it up because they love the platform.
Okay, just another question for you, Alejandro. It was come in. Can you, with respect to your work up at EMEC, can you say how much electricity that you've generated? Are you able to tell us that?
Yes. For now, we have generated very little because all the generation that we have been doing, it's been in tests. We've been there for well, without COVID, for 6 months, and all the generation has been done testing the pitch system and testing the different components of the platform. So what we have generated is not significant of the right now. Since we have generated, well, actually I don't know the exact number, but it is completely non-significant, since it has been only been testing what has been done while generating.
Okay, thank you. Sam, this is a question that may be of interest to you from Lucy Parsons, where she says that, is there any coastal defence benefit being considered within the test programme for wave devices? And I guess that will apply to near-shore devices then. There are many breakwater projects under consideration in the UK under the EA programme. Sand engines planned to protect coastal assets from wave action and storm events. Particularly whilst revenue support is absent in the UK, is there anyone looking at the possible capex share this could bring? So I suppose this is a wider benefit potentially from nearshore devices.
Okay, so just in general, the amount of energy extracted out of the waves on a coastline is going to be a fairly minimal difference. So generally, there's fairly low impact, which it's important to not have much coastal impact. So I guess in general, you'd say the amount of wave energy extracted out of a total wave energy is small. So we won't see much difference in coastal impact from what we're doing. If ever we designed a device which was more tailored towards coastal defence, in other words, we were looking to actually extract maximum energy out of the waves, that could be done. It isn't our core focus right now, but certainly the technology can be adapted that way. And so, no, at the moment, we're not looking at that as a primary pathway for us, but it's something we have definitely looked at in the past.
Okay, thank you. A question now, which is very relevant to the time that we're living through, to our developers here. How has COVID-19 impacted your operations? And do you anticipate large impacts on project delivery as a consequence? Difficult one. Gareth?
Yeah, I can answer. Just from our point of view, obviously COVID's a terrible thing and it's affected everyone differently. Bombora's already said that it has slightly affected their operation because of manufacturing. We would be the same if we were in a period of manufacturing. For us, we're still in a period of detailed design. So actually, we're about 90-95% efficiency. Everyone's been working from home doing the detailed design. We hadn't started cutting steel, and by default it hasn't slowed down our manufacture. What will be interesting now is to see, when we come back out of this, how quickly the supply chain is ready to get on with building our projects, and if there's any time lag at our appropriate time. But obviously they'll have to deal with other jobs as well, like other developers, and catch up on those. So it's their availability. We're not anticipating starting our cutting steel until next year anyways. There is a bit of time for the sector to catch up, and so hopefully those issues will be alleviated by the time we come to it. So we're quite fortunate it hasn't had a huge impact, and we have put some mitigation pieces in place to try and expedite some of the work packages. And I guess we've outsourced a little bit more of the work to expert consultants, which we'd normally do in-house. So we learn that expertise and maintain that expertise. We've had to do a bit more outsourcing, but time lag for us is all manageable. I guess the other thing that some of us will be interested in, again, Bombora ourselves, Minesto, all people who have been privileged to have WEFO support, will be interested to see that if there is a time lag in our projects, whether there's an extension from the EU Commission on that project expenditure, because obviously there's a deadline for those projects to be finished in 2023, which sounds like a long time away, but as we all know, time runs away. So not reliant on that, not working to assuming there's going to be an extension, but that's something that'll be interesting to see if that does come.
Okay, thanks, Gareth. So, Osian, if I can come back to you with a couple of questions that have cropped up now. So there's a question about Taiwan and the challenge regarding going into the water generally there, relatively?
I'm sure. I mean, we haven't found an exact site yet. We're looking for sites and applications. You know, we're looking there as a path to access the sort of the ocean current aspect of our business. So, you know, we're moving to access, to try and find the best place to access there right now. In terms of giving you general points of what would impact our ability to go into the water there, I'm probably not the right guy to ask. But if you're interested, I can take it offline and to my colleague in Taiwan and get back to you with some more points there if you'd like. Okay.
So, but coming back close to home then, just there's a couple of questions about, first of all, Hollyhead. Did I see one there about Hollyhead? Yeah, when are Minesto starting next stage of work in Hollyhead?
We already started. We started this time last year.
Yeah.
The second phase was approved then, and that's moving towards our second generation turbine installation there. And parallel to that, working towards getting a sort of path to consenting and having the permits in place for the 80 megawatt site.
Okay, it seems that Marques Nicola's got quite a lot of interest in what you're doing. Perhaps you can, we can facilitate a contact post this webinar if you don't already have a direct contact with him. Okay, so I'm conscious that we're coming up to the bell. Given that there are other questions here, but let me, if I could just finish off with one that's addressed to MEW specifically, and then one about tidal range. Firstly, on MEW, the question was, what is your sense on urgency to get the industry going in large scale in Wales in order to capture supply chain benefits for the economy? Also, is it mainly dependent on support mechanisms from the UK government, or can the Welsh government give sufficient support? Well, a couple of things there. Firstly, the Welsh government does not have jurisdiction over any support mechanism in its devolved powers at the moment. And you may well be aware that there has been a recent consultation with respect to the contract for difference and auction round 4 over the past, well, which the consultation deadline closed at the end of May, and we now await the output from that. But there was a strong representation from the marine renewable energy sector into that. Marine Energy Wales submitted a response to the consultation, as did the Marine Energy Council. And Sue Barr, who chairs the Marine Energy Council, has been on this call. I'm not sure whether she's still here, but Sue and MEC and MEW and other authorities have made a strong plea to Welsh government, to UK government to ensure that there is a viable support mechanism to develop and grow rapidly the investment opportunity in marine renewable energy. As far as the Welsh government is concerned, I think that they are anxious, and we heard the Minister say it herself, that they are lobbying UK government in the respect of the innovation power purchase agreement, trying to find a way forward to unlock this support mechanism for our industry, which will really develop the growth mechanisms. In parallel with that, MEW is doing a lot of work with Welsh Government at the moment, particularly on supply chain development. We have a package of work which we are about to undertake, and we'll be coming out to the supply chain community to discuss that with you over the coming weeks and months. So it's an open question which I can't answer directly about that growth and the speed of it, but we do realise and recognise that we need a support mechanism, and there's a lot of interaction with both UK government, Welsh government and Scottish government going on to try to unlock that opportunity for this industry. Finally, a question from Henry Dixon right at the top here about tidal range and the fact that tidal range hasn't really been mentioned in this webinar as yet. Henry, I did ask the Minister privately if she would be able to answer your question, but unfortunately, of course, she was very restricted by time. We have had internally within MEW a discussion about potentially focusing one of these webinar events on tidal range, and I suggest that that's something that we'll liaise with you on in the coming weeks to move that forward. So that's about as much as I can say at the moment. In that context, I hope that we can get a clearer picture from Welsh Government on tidal range. There's certainly, as we've seen in the last couple of days, some media attention on tidal range, particularly with the Swansea Bay project down in South Wales. Okay, so I think that is about all we can do for today. It is coming up to 4 o'clock now. I would just like to say once again, thank you all for participating in the webinar today. I hope you found it interesting and valuable. Any feedback that you'd like to give us about the format, the way that we've set it up, what you might like to see differently next time, please let us know on our info@marineenergywales.co.uk email address. I'd like to thank particularly Bethan and the MEW team for setting this up and helpfully steering us through. I think it's gone pretty well. I hope you agree with that very reasonably efficiently. Thank you very much to our panelists and our guest panelists for taking the time to prepare presentations and give them to us today. We know how much these things take, and we do appreciate the effort that you've made in supporting this event. So thank you all, everybody. All of you from distant places, as well as the localities of North and South Wales and wherever, from Houston to Northern Scandinavia, Norway, Sweden, wherever you are, thank you for joining us, and we hope we'll see you next time. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye for now. Bye-bye.